James, how are you?
Hi. Yeah, really well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, spinning's been a large part of your life for many years. Do you want to tell me about that and how it all started?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been spinning for good, must be about 17 years now. And it actually started through knitting. So I learnt to knit when I was about 9 or 10. Um, and my grandmother, my dad's mother, my grandmother, she taught me how to knit just on a whim. On a Saturday afternoon, they'd come over and yeah, so I picked up the yarn and the needles, and I think nobody really expected it to be much of a thing,
Yeah,
um, and I just sort of took to it, and I really enjoyed it, and I would pester my poor mother to take me to the local yarn shop regularly, probably every week. I'd pester her to take me, and um, it just sort of grew from there, really. And so we used to go to a show up in Alexandra Palace every year.
yeah,
And I think we went for the first year, and the second year I suddenly decided for some reason about 11, I wanted to buy a spinning wheel.
yeah,
So I said, when I go to this show, I'm going to buy a spinning wheel. So lo and behold, we arrive at the show, and we were chatting to a lady who was selling some fleece from her sheep, and I said, "Oh, that spinning wheel up there, I'd really like to buy one." And she said, "Well, it's for sale if you'd like to buy it." So I used all my Christmas money and my birthday money from that year, and I bought said spinning wheel, and I bought myself some fibre to spin, and
mm,
I pretty much went at it from there, really, and that's kind of where everything started. A couple of, and I became more and more into my spinning, and I got better and better, and I would learn from some books that I had, and YouTube was still in its sort of relative, earlier days back then. So there were some YouTube videos around, and I'd meet other spinners, and they maybe show me a thing or two, or show me what they were doing, and this kind of thing. And I went from there. So a couple of years after that, maybe 2, 3 years, I got some dyes for Christmas, and I started, to learn to dye my own fiber instead, or my own yarn. And as things progressed, then weaving, I think it was 2015, weaving then added itself into the mix,
yeah,
and then wood turning a few years after that, when I decided I wanted to start making my own spinning equipment.
yeah.
So
I heard that when you were younger at school, you kept it a little bit quiet, didn't you? Someone told me.
I yeah, I did, because let's face it, I mean, kids can be ruthless.
Mm,
So I used to keep it on the down low, but it was always very much a part of what I did when I was not at school, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, and now you've grown in confidence, and this is you. You don't mind. I mean, you're
No, no. I mean, I've no, I don't. To be honest, since when I was about, I think I must have. It was more or less when I went to university. I just stopped caring and just said, "I am who I am, and this is what I'm doing, and I'm good at what I'm doing. So why not?"
yeah,
You know.
excellent. Oh. I've seen some of the lace things you've been doing, and I've seen a
Yeah.
jump that Julie showed me that you've made, just beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so you've also got a flock of sheep. Will you share a flock of sheep, or you look after? You tell me about.
So So this is an interesting one. So my best friend Claire, who I now live with, she's a sheep farmer, and we've been best friends for must be coming up 12, 13 years now. And she's always been a sheep farmer, and they had a commercial flock of Romney sheep, which is sort of a commercial meat breed, really. And then she looked at about 4 years ago. She said, well, she was looking at selling off the majority of the commercial flock, and she said, well, she wanted to get a different breed. So um, she said she wanted to get Wensleydales, and specifically black Wensleydales. Um, so when that happened, we made sort of an agreement that I would take a more active role in the farm with the sheep. So basically, I do the paperwork and the pedigree registering and all the advertisement for the sheep. she does most of the heavy lifting work, as it were, and I'll help in. I chip in. I'll feed the lambs with her, and I do. We'll be shearing next Thursday, in fact. So I'm doing that while she's at work, and we've got I do lambing with her as well. So we kind of she does more of the physical, and I do the paperwork side of things. But of course, I also run the majority of the Etsy shop we've got, because we sell all of our wool on Etsy, you see. So it's an odd arrangement, but it kind of works,
Yeah, and it's somewhere. I know it's somewhere on the outskirts of London. You'd have to tell me specifically, but
yeah. So we're sort of Surrey. So we're in Surrey, Kent border.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And that works. You go to London and you come back and it's.
That's right. So I commute to London from here.
Yeah, because not only are you sort of a spinner and you're also quite highly qualified and involved in science as well, aren't you? So I mean, haven't
yes.
that yet.
No, we haven't. Do you want me to go ahead and explain my background there? So I'm a chemist. I'm trained as a chemist. I have a bachelor's in chemistry from York. I then became a secondary school teacher for 3 years. Decided that wasn't quite for me. So I left teaching, and I did a master's degree in green and sustainable chemistry and sustainable chemical technology. And I specialized in the chemistry and the sustainability of the dyeing industry, the textile dyeing industry. And I finished that in September of last year, so 2020. And I started my doctorate, my PhD at Imperial College, and I research bio-derived surfactants. So we make detergents from bio-based chemicals, from biochemicals, basically.
Oh.
So that's what I now do.
Yeah.
And it all sort of, mixes in, because there's quite a lot of detergents used with the textile industry. So that's one of my focuses, kind of. So there's always something textile in my mind when it comes, even when it comes to science.
Yeah, definitely. That seems to be what sort of area you're going down, and also it helps with you do the dyeing of the wool as well, and that's all. Absolutely.
It's dyeing wool is just chemistry, basically. It's if you understand the chemistry, you can dye wool. So.
So tell me about you also, because you've become very proficient in this. You also write for magazines, and you also do sort of workshops as well. So tell me a bit about that, please.
Yeah, so I do. So my workshops, so that's like obviously the in-person teaching events. So I started doing those just sort of at more local guilds, and people were always said, they were impressed by my abilities in spinning, and they were also impressed by the way I was able to explain my subject. So that's how I kind of started. And I have done a few workshops, but obviously not recently with COVID and everything. But I did. I've taught up in Bradford. I taught down in Brighton. I've taught in one of the Kent guilds. So I've done a few all over the place, kind of thing. But yeah, as you say, mainly what I do at the moment is I write for magazines. Yeah. So I've been writing for a magazine. It's an international magazine based around sort of spinning and weaving. It's called Ply Magazine. And I've been writing for them for, must be coming up 8-9 years now. And I've published, 10 articles maybe, I suppose,
that's
for them.
Based one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's American based. So it's based in, I think it's based out of Oregon now, or is it Washington? Either or. But so I've been writing for them for a while, on all sorts of things, but within my specialisms. And in the most recent one, they featured me as the person of interest for the magazine as well, which was really nice. Yeah. I also write for a New Zealand-based magazine, well, sort of New Zealand and America-based magazine, which is Tiny Studio Fibre Goodness Creative Life magazine, which is again quite which is focused mainly on spinning and fibre crafts and things like that. And I've been writing for them for must be just over a year now, maybe 2 years. So I've published, I think, 4 or 5 articles in there, and I've actually focused in on some of the things I've been doing more recently. So I wrote them an article on dyeing with cochineal, you know, the insects, to get all sorts of colors, purples, reds, and things. And I've written a few reviews for some spinning wheels that I test out for some friends in the States. And yeah, you say about workshops. Well, I'm actually, well, yeah, I can't really talk about it, but there is something interesting planned for next year.
Oh, okay. Excellent. So you're involved in spinning wheels because you actually sort of invented something to do with the spinning wheel as well. So tell me a bit about that.
So my own invention within the spinning genre, I suppose, and fiber equipment is my spindles. So I'm a wood turner, and I got into wood turning specifically because I wanted to make parts for my spinning wheels, and I also wanted to make spindles that I could sell and people could spin with. So I've made them for a couple of years, and really what I've spent time doing is perfecting them. And earlier this year, through one of the lockdowns, I got back at the lathe and I said, right, I'm going to come up with some new designs. So I have now developed 2 designs that I now one which I dub as a UFO. And the reason I call it that is because I turned some spindles and I sent some pictures to my friend Evanita in the States, and she said, "Oh, the whirl on this looks like a flying saucer. It looks like a UFO." So I sort of looked at it. I said, "You know, it does." So we dubbed it the UFO, and that one's designed to give a longer sustained spin time. And I also made some reproduction Scottish spindles, a specialist Scottish spindle called a Dalagan. And they sold well on Etsy, and I put them up and people were really pleased with them. But I thought to some of the exotic woods I work with can be very dense, and that makes them very heavy. So I thought, well, what can I do to make these lighter and slightly more user-friendly? So what I did is I thought, well, hey, why don't I turn a tip on the end of it and make it so that someone can twirl it in a bowl, essentially, and make it into what we call in the spinning world a supported spindle. So it was then basically that my supported Dalagans were born, and so I make those 2 designs pretty much exclusively at the moment. So those are kind of my inventions. I have got others in the pipeline that I can't, I occasionally think about, but I focused on those for now. But yeah, so I mean, I think I mentioned I'm also friends of mine. They're spinning wheel makers. Some really good friends in the States. David and Rebecca Giles, and Dave has a background in aeronautical engineering. So I don't design the stuff for him, but I do test. And we talk about, I give him feedback based off of my own engineering knowledge. I'm pretty nifty with physics and engineering of a spinning wheel. So I give him help with that. So I guess not really an invention, but I help with somebody else's invention, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's fabulous. You've got quite a fan base, I think, as well.
I'm relatively well known these days. Mostly known by my other handle, which is it's actually my Instagram name. So I go by Longdraw James, and that was when I used to be on. I was on a site called Ravelry, which I no longer use very much, unfortunately, due to some issues with their color scheme these days that give me headaches. But neither here nor there. Yeah, long story, but I used to be on Ravelry, and my name was Longdraw James because I'm a specialist. One of my specialist areas is long draw spinning. So I just put Longdraw and James together, and it kind of was born that way. And that just kind of became what I got known by. So I'm relatively well known these days. I suppose, by a few people. So I can't complain.
Well, I really have. What I really love to see is a picture of your sheep. I love animals, so I'm a picture of your sheep.
I'll send you. We've got all sorts of colours. We range. It's quite interesting because we say black Wensleydale, but black Wensleydale doesn't necessarily actually mean just black. They actually they range. in color. You can get, we have some that are almost like a really pale silver, ranging through to kind of what I would call a cleric gray, then ranging through to black with some white fibers in, and you get all sorts of different shades. And then you get what they call a raisin, which is like a black with a shade of kind of hint purpley kind of tinge to it. Then you get like a true black.
Yeah.
But so they're more coloured Wensleydale. I suppose we don't call them coloured because you don't get brown ones that I know of.
No.
But yeah, no, I have to get you some photos. They're very, very sweet sheep. I mean, they are a long wool breed, so they do look pretty good. They're currently in full fleece, so they do have the long dreadlock like fleece going on at the moment. They do look quite striking, I have to say.
Do you think you'll be sort of in the future, after you've done a PhD, do you think you'll move away from the sheep, or still have the sheep in your life, or
yeah, I'd really like to keep up with the sheep, because I do enjoy the things we do with them, and I really enjoy being able to market our wool and get the name out there, because black Wensleydales are actually incredibly rare. We now have the largest flock in the country of the breed. Yeah, so this is the largest flock. We've got about 80 purely black Wensleydales. I mean, they're a sheep rarer than the giant panda in terms of how many there are. There are a couple of hundred, if that, in total breeding ewes, and we have 80. So, and we've just lambed, 40? So we're doing our bit for the breed. We're doing what we can, you know.
That's cool. Before lockdown, did you sort of go to lots of fairs, or did you do demonstrations and things like that, lots of fairs? Is that what you were doing?
I used to go to a few spinning events. So there are a few in the country. So Fibre East is a big one, which is in Bedfordshire. We exhibited as exhibitors, selling fibre and wool from the sheep at the show in 2019. That would be the summer. And before that, I hadn't exhibited as such. I'd been as a visitor, basically. And I've been to Woolfest, which is up in Cumbria, and I've been to Wonderwool as well, which is in Wilth Wells in Wales. But I have done demonstrations as well. I've done spinning demonstrations at various places, craft fairs. Sort of local. I did the Rettendon Village show once as a demonstrator. I sat and spun at a couple of llama farms. And things like that. So I have done a bit over the years. Not so much within the last sort of 5 or 6 years, though.
Right. So how's the lockdown and what's been going on in the last year? How's that affected what you've been doing? Has it affected you at all? Or?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it has. Obviously, all of my academic stuff, my masters and things, went completely online. Which was an adjustment, of course. But with the spinning, actually, do you know what? It actually really helped my spinning. I will not lie to you. I am generally quite rubbish at social media. But through the lockdown, I actually started to become quite a lot more visible on social media. I was very much more active on social media. So I was doing a lot more with my Instagram account and posting a load more photos of what I was working on. Which was really good for me. I think I wrote more articles as well. Definitely wrote more articles last year than I had done previously. So in actual fact, it has kind of benefited it. I mean, I got an awful lot done, and I was very. It wasn't even just doing bits and bobs here. I was actually very productive.
Yeah.
And I actually added natural dyeing. My lockdown skill, I suppose you could call it, was I added natural dyeing. It coincided with the part of my master's where I was actually investigating natural dyes anyway in literature. So I thought, well, hey, they've been doing this for hundreds of years. Why don't I use my own chemical knowledge and buy in some natural dye stuffs and have a go? And then you realize that actually it's still just chemistry. So I became quite into that. So I would class myself now as a natural dyer as well as a synthetic dyer. So I guess short answer, yes, it was actually really quite good for my fibre stuff. In actual fact, which is probably different to a lot of people's lockdown experiences, but
That's fabulous. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. Anything else you want to add? Or
Not really. Yeah, no. Well, thank you for having me,
All right.
and it's been great talking to you.